Okie dokie. So we're going to begin by understanding exactly who you are. So I'm going to start with Al, okay? Al, I want you to tell me the story of how you became an expert and how you learned about this industry and what makes a real estate broker successful. What did you learn with all your experiences? So kind of tell me that story.
Sure. So I used to manage rental properties for a number of years. And then as the economy was not doing so well, there were more foreclosed properties on the market. And brokers came to me asking me to manage their foreclosed properties. Over the years, we have gained expertise in remodeling and renovating vacant properties so that they sell quicker and that the brokers can make more money.
Noah, now it's your turn.
I've been involved in construction my entire life. Since I'm 13 years old, I've been around the construction process. I've renovated, I became an expert in this industry in particular 3 years ago when in my first year involved in the REO industry, we renovated and helped close 125 properties.
So tell me, Noah, I'm going to start with you. Tell me what you noticed in that time, and where I'm going with this question, right? Where I want you to go is I want you to tell me a story that goes something like, I noticed that properties that where the work was done correctly, where the design was current, where like all these things were really great, sold fast, and the broker made a lot of money. So tell me your journey for how you learned this and how you know this to be true.
I know this to be true because handlers came back to us over and over and over again. The properties that they just asked us to do little repairs, we didn't necessarily get repeat business from. The properties sometimes are still in the market. We hear about them a year or two later for another that they're finally under contract. They need some small repairs done to make them FHA financing approval.
So what was different between the properties where the brokers kept coming back to you that sold really fast?
Those properties got a big list of renovation work done. They were not all necessarily full remodeling of the entire property, but they were all given a proper at least a facelift to a full gut and rebuild.
Describe what a full gut and rebuild might look like if I were a customer. What might I see versus a, what did you call it? A facelift versus
a fresh coat of paint throughout, new set of appliances in the kitchen, and new carpet and vinyl flooring were necessary.
What's that? Is that a facelift or what is that?
That's a facelift. That's a facelift. A full renovation would be gutting the bathrooms and the kitchen, all new kitchen cabinets, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, new tub, tile surround at the tubs, a new roof and new HVAC equipment, just to get us started. Sky's the limit in this business. We can put additions on as well, but that's when you make the house a modern house. That's when people, when they step foot in that house, they forget that it was an REO or a foreclosure, and all of a sudden they feel that this is a new modern house on the market.
The home owns the house.
Say that again, please.
That when the prospective buyers walk into the house, they feel like this is their home, the home that they're ready to move into. Also, it's not a home that it's going to need work. It's a home because it's ready to be moved in.
This is so good. What is it that what kind of emotional feelings that people have about foreclosed, short sale, auctioned? How do potential buyers feel about those?
What's the skeleton in the closet?
That they need to overcome that feeling?
Well, they need first freedom.
I don't want you to talk about that.
what they need to know is that they have to see that the house has that the craftsmanship is good, that no stone was left unturned, and that that the quality of materials. Yeah, I mean, when they see that it's a new roof on the house, and that the HVAC equipment is new, or that there are warranties associated with it, it gives them the opportunity to relax, know that they're getting a good product.
I think it has to look like the house next door where the Jones are selling the house. Meaning they can't tell the difference between this house. Since it's owned by a bank, and it was at one point in foreclosure, it makes no difference to them. It looks the same as the house that's being sold by a homeowner next door to them.
You hit on something that's very emotional, and I think that's really powerful, right? It's almost as if potential buyers stepping into a foreclosed type of property might have that same feeling as if like something bad had happened in that house. There's badness there.
Right, absolutely.
Almost like a crime or something had happened. But when you give it a full remodel, it's as if nothing happened.
Well, whatever happened, it's a new house anyway. There's nothing. This is a new beginning.
It's a new beginning. I think that's very, very important. Al, what is it that you know for sure about what it takes to be a successful real estate broker in the REO segment? If I want to be a millionaire in this segment, what is it that I have to be able to do?
You have to be able to sell the properties, not manage the properties.
A lot of properties.
Anything there? Like you gotta be able, like how many should I be able to sell? What should, color it in for me.
Okay, so you can't sell, in this business, you're paid a low commission per property, no matter what it takes to sell. You spend a lot of time on it, spend a little amount of time, again, the same commission. Therefore, you need to use your time wisely, use your expertise to do what you do best, and that's sell the properties. You should not be managing the properties, managing the construction, managing the preservation needs, and managing the physical needs of the property. That should be left to a construction or preservation company.
I think you and I have talked about this before. Do you know any millionaire REO type brokers that are like really successful?
Absolutely.
Tell me about them. What are some of the best practices that millionaire REO brokers have?
Sure. So the best practices that millionaire brokers have is that they find one dependable, good contractor who they could count on for most, if not all, of their properties. We've seen brokers that started off managing a few properties at a time. After working with us for a little while, we're able to manage many, many properties. They're able to sell many properties because they were able to pass on the management piece to a company like First Freedom Preservation.
I want
to say this.
They were able to national clients.
They were able to free up their time. Instead of having to go out to manage property, construction and renovation work at a property, they were able to hire First Freedom, and they could get more and more properties because they had more time. They were able to sell them faster, and the banks rewarded them by giving them more and more properties. They became very wealthy.
That's awesome. It's a system that's
I work with people who work for the Nationals that we could help them get in with the Nationals. Like, literally, help them get in, right?
Okay, I didn't hear any of that.
This is the added thing that we didn't discuss, is that if you work with a contractor who works with the National, they could refer you work through their connection with the National.
There are certain names, that's not a given, but there are certain names within the industry. First Freedom got to where it is now because we are a name in the industry, and therefore people talk about us. And when a broker is talking to an asset manager at a bank saying, we need a good contractor because, I'm having problems with these in-network contractors that you're giving us, why can't you let me use First Freedom? And then the bank says, well, who's this First Freedom? Let's get them on board. If they're so good, we should be able to work with them. And it goes vice versa. We have banks reaching out to us sometimes. There's a new big entity out there that's asking us questions recently, asking us for help with their brokers. They're actually calling us, asking us questions about the brokers. So it kind of goes in a circle. They feed each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So let's step on. I want you to give me a summary Okay, and I want you to list them in order. Or actually, no, let's just do it one at a time. Let's talk about problem number one. What is the biggest problem that real estate brokers have that's keeping them from being successful and being a millionaire broker?
Okay. You can't be successful and sell many properties if you're busy managing the properties all day. You have to get rid of the managing part of the properties and work on selling the properties.
So give me a rundown of lists of, if I were a camera, what would managing a property look like? How many hours a day could I waste just managing?
For an 8-hour day, you could spend half of the day, if not more, managing the property. Managing the property entails calling contractors, emailing contractors to request bids on properties, calling and emailing them to find out why they haven't submitted them yet. Then once they're submitted, make sure they're all done correctly per your request. You ask them to do A, but they skipped it and they did B. Sending it back to the contractor, just in this vicious cycle of going back and forth to the contractors, managing them. That's what managing a contractor, a managing nightmare a contractor could be.
Only the beginning. Once the contract is in motion.
That's the first step of the managing. And once you get an approval from the bank to proceed with the renovation and construction of the property, you contact the contractor to let him know that he's approved to proceed, and they don't respond to you, letting them know that they received your approval and it's on the schedule to be completed. And then they respond to you that they're going to complete the work, but you don't hear from them for a very long time after that. So you don't know the status of the work. Is the work underway? Is the work not? So instead, you're forced to go out to the property and check yourself to see, did these contractors actually begin the work? Or did they just tell you that they're going to begin the work? You go to the property and you find out that they have indeed begun the work, but very little is done to the property and there's no one working at the job when you get there. You're back to calling the contractor, emailing the contractor to find out what's taking so long to get this job underway. Eventually,
or you get there, by the time you actually go check on it yourself, you find out the finishes are not what you wanted.
Eventually, the job gets done after much time spent calling, emailing, communicating with the contractor. And when you go out to do a final inspection of the property, you see it was not done correctly. And I say correctly, I mean it wasn't done good quality work, wasn't done with good quality materials. And now you have to try to get the contractor to go back and correct the job that he did. And the cycle begins again. You call and email the contractor. Eventually, they go out there. They fix some things, leave other things not corrected. At this point, the bank is calling you to ask you why it wasn't completed last week as you promised. And you're forced to tell them that you're left with no option to tell them that the contractor you picked did not do a good job, and you're now looking for another contractor to correct his mistakes. This takes another week or two to complete. And besides all the time that you spent managing this contractor, you're unable to sell properties because your time of the day was spent managing when you should have been selling. In addition, your client is fed up with you and put you on probation period because your work is taking a lot longer. The work at your property is taking a lot longer than it should have.
And then on top of that, if the finishes aren't exactly right, then you're not even going to get top dollar for that property.
Like the property's going to take a long time to sell. Due to
I think there's one more piece to this. One more piece, if I may. I think the worst thing that can happen is when the broker gets to the property and everything is done, and he turns on the sink or flushes the toilet and realizes there's no water at the property. He wants to know why the contractor, or no heat at the property, and the contractor responds, well, what do you mean? It wasn't on when we got here. And the broker said, well, don't you think you should have said something to me? don't you think there should have been that open correspondence and communication, and to talk about the fact there's no heat working at this property because now we're in winter and I want to show a house and I can't have water in the pipes if there's no heat on, and I can't show a house if people can't flush a toilet?
Got it. Got it. That's really good. So one of the things that we know for sure is that successful people, successful business people, whether they're real estate or brokers, know how to do one thing really, really well. And that is they delegate the things that they don't want to do, right? And they delegate the things to other people who are better at it than they are, right?
Right.
The next question is, what is it that people need to do about it? Talk about, remember, I want to be a millionaire broker, right? I'm your child and you want me to be successful. What is the one thing, right? So the number one thing you got to say is, hey, you want to be successful, you got to move properties, and that means you got to delegate and you got to have a team you can.
What?
What do I need to do to overcome this problem of overmanaging? Because I'm not making money.
You have to decide what future you want for this property. What future meaning you want this property to be selling as is? You want this property to be sold to an investor? You're going to wholesale it? Or do you want this property to go on the market for a homeowner? Because if you're going to put this property on the market for a homeowner, then you need to have a clear scope of work in mind so that you know exactly what this house should look like to give you the top dollar return when this house goes to the market.
So I need to know, out of all the options you gave me, which one is going to give me the most money?
Most money is selling the house to the homeowners. The homeowner is the one that's going to spend the most on their house. And in order to do that, you have to bring this house current, modern, with all the amenities that people are accustomed to having when they're renting in the nice high-rises that they're renting downtown.
Okay, great. So now, we've got some bullets here. So kind of give me the to-do list, right, of how I'm going to finally stop managing, right? Remember, you're not going to tell me to hire First Freedom.
Right.
You're going to show me what are all the things I have to do to get out of this management overwhelm.
Okay. The first thing you have to do is adjust your mindset. You have to realize that there is no way for you to make a lot of money, build your team, and be successful if you're spending more than half your day managing properties. The way to do that is as follows. You have to identify what you could stop doing. Like we discussed, you need to stop jumping from contractor to contractor. You need to get a core group of contractors that you know and trust, and they're going to make your job a priority. And you know that once you email them, once you communicate them one time, you consider the job done. The next thing you want to do is find a contractor who not only does construction on vacant or foreclosed properties, but also does preservation work. That will save you a lot of time in management as well.
Why? What makes those companies different and better, and how will they save me time?
The way they'll save you time is that instead of telling you that we don't do this, go find a preservation company to trash out the house. You know there's a one-stop shop. They can do anything and everything you need.
Okay. There's one more you got to tell me. There's a couple more you got to tell me.
Okay, you're going to also pick a company. You need to pick a company that works with nationals as well. So in the event that you're unable to pick them directly, then you can still pick them through the national. The reason that this is good, besides that you're able to stick with one company, as we discussed earlier, is that this company, if they work with a national company, it shows they're an expert in this field. It shows that they were previously vetted, trained, and approved to work on a large level, on a large playing field.
Okay. What are some other things that I could do? I have we talked about outsourcing be more specific about that? Where, you know, I'm going to find an expert, I'm going to find a company, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, now give them some management advice, right? What else can they do?
Other tips that you could do to save yourself management is find items that you can outsource. For example, whether it's doing BPOs on properties, inspections on properties, don't spend your accounting and bookkeeping of your REO properties. Don't spend your precious time managing things that you can outsource to someone else.
Okay, and why?
You can find a number of finishes that might make your property unique. Because there are so many properties on the market, but if there are certain things that help make your property unique, that can make all the difference in the world. So whether it be a specific style vanity you want to use, a cutting edge style cabinet door, whatever
or modern
it may be,
faucets.
or modern faucets, be specific, think about in advance something that you think that will help your property be different and above all the others.
Now, why is it important to spend my time choosing these unique finishes and such? And I think I want you to go towards where the buyer trends are, right? I'm honestly, as you guys are talking, I am an HGTV addict, and I watch Flip or Flop, like the couple that does those flips and flops. And what do you notice? They always use the same people, and she has a very specific style. You know, that she might vary or whatever, but she's always doing something unique. And they're very successful, I'm thinking. It seems like they are because they're on TV, right? Do you think that your audience aspires to that type of thing? Is there like a trend towards what buyers want to see? Like, buyers aren't going to buy a house and pay top dollar for stuff that isn't perfect.
That's true. And if it's top dollar, they want to see granite. And they want to see stainless steel sinks or stainless steel appliances. But it's more than that. You can and should demand that your houses have elongated hole toilets and shaker cabinet style doors on the cabinets, because these are the modern looks, and that's what people want to buy. People don't want to buy an outdated house, especially if they don't have the money to change it themselves.
Right.
They're not going to pay top dollar for something that they have to put money into after.
And they don't want, and then that's why you want to work with a certain kind of contractor. I guess where I'm going with this is you don't want to work with a contractor that's got like a warehouse full of stuff that they want to get rid of.
They bought on sale because everyone else is getting rid of because it's not in style anymore. Exactly. You want to go with contractors dealing with materials that are modern and sleek and that are here now, not because they fell off a truck 8 years ago, but because no one can move them somewhere else. So you're just going to use it. You can use anything because no one's going to care. That's not true. The buyer cares. The buyer cares. That's going to make or break you're selling this house quickly.
Right. And millionaire real estate brokers know what customers want. That's like their unique strength, isn't it?
Yes.
The folks who are really, really successful are the ones, and are able to move houses quickly, are the ones that are able to select the highest value work and finishes and remodels that make that house feel like a home and new and fresh, right? So
Right.
Let's go back to we talked about problem number one, right? That they need to stop managing and do what they do well. Now, let's talk about efficiency, right? Why? Why do you need to get rid of the managing, have a consistent construction crew, choose the best finishes? Why? If you want to make a lot of money.
That's what's going to sell the house quickly. The faster you sell the house, the more houses you can sell.
And what gets in the way of doing all these things? The constant managing, right? You need to do this because the more you touch something, right?
More, yeah.
Right?
The more you're managing the property, the less time you are selling properties. And that's not how you become rich.
Correct. Right? Okay, so now I want you to tell me, and I think you've kind of been doing this, but just for the sake of the outline, give them a tip, So now I'm the broker. Give me a tip. What is one way to start, getting rid of this management stuff? And what should be my first step? What's one way I can stop managing and start selling?
Streamlining as much as possible. Finding that one contractor, that one P&M vendor, that those finishes that you need, and do them over and over and over again. If it's not broken, don't fix it.
Okay.
Doing the Freedom process. What's the name for it? The Freedom First process.
Okay. Freedom First process, right? So the one way is, hold on, if you've been managing, blah, blah, blah. So tell me about this Freedom First process. Do you know what it is? Did you break it up into a process?
The Freedom First process is hiring one contractor to manage the construction of all your properties.
All right. What we're gonna do next, and I know this will be fun. This is giving us a place to start so we can edit, right? All right. So tell me a story. This is like a little case study. And what a case study looks like is, here was Joe, right? Joe was an REO agent, and he wasn't making any money. He was spending all his time managing properties, right? And then he finally had enough, and maybe, you met him and he started working with him, and just kind of tell me that transformational story of how someone who solved this problem, what that looks like now for him or her. You can make it up. You can create an amalgam.
Hold on 1 second. Let me correct this a bit. Oh, how we went. Someone had a disaster. We bring them around. Right. Oh, okay. Use them.
We
Yeah,
what name do I? What name should we give him?
It doesn't matter. You can call him. You can call him.
This is a true story.
You have a true story?
Yeah,
true story.
You can give him just the first.
Contacted by a client of ours a number of years ago. We did he was representative entity. He hired us. They hired us to do some work on a couple of houses. The first house that we were done, the client asked us to go back to do a couple of small changes to the original scope of work. The original job that we did at this property was so good, but we went back to do this work. The house was under contract. That's how fast it got sold. The same client asked us to go do a second house in a completely different county. There was a different set of people working there because First Freedom sends our technicians based on county. I don't know if any of this matters.
No.
I
think that they had trouble. Let's say they had trouble selling. This client had trouble selling. Let's start over again.
Okay, start over.
Start over again.
We had a client. We'll call them John's real estate firm. And John was having trouble selling properties. Then he met First Freedom. Or he hired First Freedom to do a renovation for him. On the first job that First Freedom did, it was a full renovation of a property for him. Before First Freedom turned in the work as complete, we were informed that the property was under contract. The work quality and the workmanship and quality of the job was so great that they were able to show and sell the property before First Freedom completed the work.
Like that, right? So now I want to hear a personal, when I say personal, a client story, right? Great, that's great, he sold stuff, right? But I want to be a millionaire broker, right? So then what happened? Like, was he sorry?
John's real estate, whatever we're calling them, was so scattered that they enlisted the help of Pete. Pete was a client of First Freedom's, and Pete recommended First Freedom. First Freedom came in and helped them sell a number of properties. In the meantime, John was still so scattered and still didn't know what to do. he had contractors that had walked off the job on him, contractors that took his money and didn't complete things, took his money saying that the job was complete, walked away. Later did John find out when the property was about to close that it did not pass all the local inspections necessary, etc. John called Pete and said, hey, who was that contractor that you had that helped you with those other properties that you had under contract and closing before the job was actually completed? That's what kind of product First Freedom puts out. He said, oh, Pete tells John, no problem, call First Freedom. We are now currently, John is currently a happy client of First Freedom. We work for John throughout the entire state of Maryland, renovating properties from him. And John, from start to finish, including inside Maryland and outside of Maryland, actually, at this point.
John is selling more properties than he has ever sold before.
Absolutely.
Right? So, like, it would be really great if we had numbers that said, you know, John was averaging 50 properties a year versus 250 properties a year, right? You want to show this contrast.
Absolutely. John was selling 50. John was selling when he contacted First Freedom. John was selling 50 properties a year, approximately one per week. 1.5 years later, John is selling three properties per week.
Right? So 3 times, that's like is that twice as much or 3 times as much?
3 times as much.
3 times as much, right?
Yes.
That's awesome. So now, before
one of the biggest problems the realtors have now, or entities have now, when they own these properties or they manage these properties, even though they want to do the renovation work, they don't necessarily feel it's worthwhile if they're going to have to sit on the property for such a long amount of time. They'd rather sell it as is and take a cut on their overall just to get it off of their desk. When you work with a good contractor, you don't have to make that decision because you know that using that contractor will help you get that property off your desk in a very short amount of time relative to the amount of work that you're going to do, which will overall help you sell more properties that are showing nicer to homeowners, which is bringing in a higher profit margin.
And you can therefore sell more and become a millionaire.
Seriously, think about it, right?
Millionaire broker. That's what we're calling it? Millionaire broker?
Millionaire broker, something like that, right?
Millionaire broker. Millionaire broker. Millionaire broker.
It's almost like millionaire matchmaker in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. I think it's
all right, so we touched with that very first problem. We touched on a lot of different elements, but let's focus in on the second biggest problem, right? The one that says contractors don't do a good job, right? We're going to kind of parse them out, right? So let's talk a little bit about that. So what is the second biggest problem that poor brokers have?
Communication with their team.
Okay.
Brokers
Who's their team?
need to know what's going on at all times. Al's moving stuff around. I can't see.
Let's think, right? We already talked about the biggest problem that they have is that they're spending all their time managing and they're not spending enough time selling, right? And we gave them lots of tips on how to stop managing and start selling, right? Now, what you have on your piece of paper here is problem number 2 is the contractors aren't doing a good job. Is there another problem that's keeping them from being successful? Like when you said they're not communicating with their teams, how do they do that if if they've outsourced everything? What kind of communication should they be having maybe?
They should be having at least weekly, if not more frequent, correspondences with their team. They should never be.
Who is their team?
Their contractors, their P&M vendors, whoever it is that they selected to be part of their team has to be constant communication. There's never a time where a broker should be in the dark.
Got it. So make a distinction for me between managing and being in communication with their team. What's the difference?
Managing is that they're going to be the one asking for things or calling the shots about things. Communication means you're going to be well informed by the people that they've chosen to help them with these projects. They will be well informed by those people without them having to ask for that information, without them having to bark orders or request things. That information is there, live fed to them.
Okay, so The answer to the next question is not hire first freedom.
Right.
The answer to the next question is more like something like state your expectations, or look for someone that does, or something like that, right? The next question is, if the problem is you're not getting good communication, right? The problem is you don't know what's going on at the property.
Correct.
So
first property, you know what, right.
First problem is you're managing everything. And the second problem is, if you're not managing everything, you don't know what's going on with the property. So what is it they need to have in place so that they always know what's going on with the property?
Constant. So the answer is they need constant updates and constant pictures, dated pictures showing along with those updates. They can actually see the progress as it happens.
Excellent. Why do they need to have constant updates and pictures of how the property is happening at a regular time?
The job will be done on time. Two, maybe more importantly for some of you brokers, so that when your clients are asking, you have that information on your fingertips without saying, oh, hang on, let me check. You have that information, and if that information is not adequate, then you know that things have to be done in advance before you look bad to your client.
Great. Now, again, the answer is not hire first freedom.
You got it. You got the theme.
What is one way that they can make sure that this communication is happening and that they're getting pictures and that they're on top of this without...
Contractors know your expectations.
From the beginning.
Demand updates on whatever frequency you demand them. Demand progress photos with those updates. Demand they use the finishes and the quality of work that you expect, and they make your demands clear from the beginning and do not settle for less.
What is one red flag that I might see or hear that would tell me that even though the contractors say that they're going to do this, but that I'm going to end up right back, like a bad relationship? What's a red flag? What is something that I should be looking out for that should tell me that even though I tell them that I want this, that I'm not going to get it?
I would say ask them for testimonials, referrals from other successful millionaire agents who have used them.
Okay, so now we're right back to the next thing. Give me a story of how, right? Give me a before it was terrible, then they did it this way, and now it's perfect. So tell me a story of how it looks when this process is working.
Can we go back to the same client?
Yeah, sure.
When John contacts us, when John's real estate company contacts us, they just tell us they want level A, B, or C, and we know automatically what level of finishes they want. We know automatically if that's going to include a all-new kitchen, or if we're just going to facelift this property by splashing a coat of paint on it and replacing the carpets. Are we putting in high-end appliances, medium-grade appliances? Because we have a set spec sheet for different level properties, depending on the marketable area, which the real estate agent, as they do their job so well, they tell us what's going to sell in that market. All they have to do is say, this property is going to get high-end, middle-grade, low-end, just some facelift, and then we can take it from there.
Well, what does the communication part look like?
Weekly updates are given. Pictures are sent.
You tell them what they had before and what they have now. The previous contractor, right?
Right.
Previous contractor, they would send it. They would go back and forth with emails, phone calls, tracking them down, telling them what they want, meeting them at the properties as well, discuss the jobs. That was the way they did work before. Once they met, we can't say person. Once they met a good contracting company, they now just send an email with the style type A, B, C, or D, and a completion date. And after that, the construction company is sending them weekly updates proactively without the broker asking anything. They're hitting all the target dates, and they're completing the job correctly on time.
And what does the broker's life look like then? This whole thing of having it right in your fingertips. So then what happens? The bank calls, and what happens? Like, what used to happen and what happens now?
They have all the information for the bank. They look great. And now they have half a day to decide if they want to play golf or if they want to sell more houses.
You guys are getting into the swing of this, aren't you now? Yeah.
I think I'm a broker.
Yeah. It's really good.
I know. I get so excited, right? Okay, so what is the third biggest problem? So far we know that what's keeping them from making millions, too much management, they're not getting the communication that they need, right? What is the third problem? How to grow your team, you said. So I think that's awesome, right? Let's talk about that, because that is how you become a millionaire broker, isn't it? By having a team.
Yeah.
And maybe you should educate me as a very new broker about how do I make money? How do I make more money by having a team? Like, shouldn't I just keep it all for myself? How does that work?
Everyone is good at what they're good at. People are experts in their own field. Brokers are not contractors. Contractors are not brokers.
You're an expert at selling properties.
Do that over and over again so you can continuously make lots and lots of money.
Contractors are experts at fixing properties.
Oh, so they're part of the team. So, okay, so who should be part of my team? That's great. I thought it was a team of other brokers, but here it's actually a multifunctional team.
You're correct.
Talking about, correct?
There's the broker. He may have an assistant that helps him inspect the properties initially, and to help him close out the property after the repairs are done. He needs to have a good P&M vendor, someone who helps him with the basic upkeep with the property. He needs to have a good contractor. That's all he needs, because that takes care of all the necessities of that property. Ideally, he can even cut out one person to have less people touching it. You could actually have one company that's both the P&M vendor and the contractor.
Okay, so
This is making a team without costing you money, because the contractors become your team. They're not just a third-party contractor.
You're not asking for money up front. There's trust there. They understand that the money's going to be paid at the end of the job.
And there's a common goal to get this property to sell quickly and at best value.
You work with the same team members over and over again. When something is needed to be done, when the property is at closing, and something needs to be done at last minute, your team will
complete it without
help
extra.
you kick the winning goal.
Okay, so let's see if I understand this, right? If I want to be a successful broker, I need to have a team of experts, and that team includes a contractor, a P&M person. What else?
I think you should encourage people to get runners.
What we're discussing is having a runner go to the properties to inspect.
Well, the broker's an expert, so it shouldn't be his job. He shouldn't take up his valuable time doing the basic walkthroughs and inspections. He shouldn't be spending 3 hours driving to a property, taking pictures of cabinets falling off the walls, stained carpets, etc., just to then come back and send it to a contractor. He should be hiring someone who needs some extra money, a college kid, aka someone who's not skilled labor. I don't know how to say that in a nice way, so I'll let you do that. But he should be hiring someone to do the very basic function needs that he requires, and then from there to having his partner, not just the core team, but his partner, his company, contractor, P&M vendor company, that's really going to handle everything for him so that he's able to go sell that property.
Got it. Right? So ultimately, the way you make a lot of money is it's always like rinse and repeat. You have to work with someone that you know and trust, that has this process in place, that you're not touching stuff all the time, right? And I think the point you made, Al, is that by partnering with a team, and sharing this, like, what do you call it? Your goals, having the same goals, right? They're actually employees of yours without your having to pay them anything.
Exactly.
That's where a lot of the money comes from, right?
Instead of hiring someone to manage the construction, hiring someone to manage the preservation, you have a free team player that the bank is hiring to manage it.
That's awesome, right? Okay. Now, there's other elements to this story, but I think I kind of want to stop here, right? Because I think that I want to take what we've got. And, honestly, I'm going to turn off the recording